This is the Mosen Mortgage Program with Sarah Mosen. Mosen Mortgage is licensed in several states for residential and commercial purchases and refinancing. Call 800-662-9550. And now, here's your host, Sarah Mosen.
Good morning, folks. It's great to be back here again in the studio. And I'll tell you what, either way you look at it, you can't be young forever. We all have to retire one day, right, Carol?
The sooner I retire, the happier I'll be.
I don't know. I just can't picture you just sort of sitting still and enjoying the moment.
Letting my muscles atrophy.
But the statistics, where people are fearful about retirement, and naturally so, because of where the market is, a lot of folks lost 7 years of their investments.
Right. So, where is the most anxiety? Is it the older people who are getting closer to retirement? Are those the ones who are most worried?
The ones that were ready to retire and have lost the 7 years, and it is a lot of hard work to have that sort of envisioned in their goal setting that we are going to be done, but then having to continue working for 7 more years to make up the difference, or even more, because depending on how you invested, the market has been very bumpy, and you could have lost a significant amount of your retirement. And if anything, as I say, when you're going through that period, it is a good time to just stay still and not pull out your funds from the market, because at that point in the game where things were dropping, the market was plummeting, some folks got pretty fearful and took out their funds and ended up losing 50% of their retirement. Whereas as you see the market shifting, some of that has actually increased, some of the stocks.
Right. If you could have sat tight at the time rather than panicking, you'd probably be in a better state. But it is hard. When you see it all going, you think, well, I better at least get something that I can put under my mattress and know is there. Exactly. I understand that. Yeah. So,
the big thing about retirement is that, yes, there is a sort of air of fear and the fear factor and planning for the future. And I enjoy talking to our listeners about that, because it is something that you're not alone in your thinking. We've looked at ways to help folks with their current retirement plan, because some of the savings that they're actually sitting on, where they're sitting on 5% rates on their mortgage, and they may be down to a 15-year term, they could probably go down to a 10-year term, take equity out and reinvest it into the market, or put it away for their retirement. They would benefit greatly, because their mortgage payment is really not going to increase. It might be exactly the same.
Right, at that stage of the game. Right, that's right.
And people don't realize that if you take out $10,000 or $15,000 from your property as equity, your mortgage payment may go up by $5. So if you're looking at, I don't want to take out 15 because the payment's going to be higher, and you are going to have bills coming up, or you don't have that emergency fund, or your taxes are going to go up, take the $15,000 out.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Because your mortgage payment is not going to change significantly with that extra cash.
Right. These are all calculations that the Mosen Mortgage Company can make easily for you. You're listening at home and have some questions. I recommend you just give Sarah a call and run a few things by her, get some good advice. It's a free call. The advice is free. 800-662-9550 reaches Sarah Mosen at the Mosen Mortgage Corporation. And, of course, you can always speak directly with her. She's not going to pass you off to somebody else to answer your questions. In fact, she'd rather talk to you than pass you off anyway. So be sure to make this phone call sometime this week. Put it on your to-do list for the week. If you're looking at retirement and you're wondering what's the best way, given the shorter period of time now that you have to look at, what's the best way to handle the resources that you have. Home values, are they having an effect too on retirement funds?
Absolutely. I think that what has occurred, where there are situations where your home may actually has depreciated, where you owe more than what the value is. That causes a lot of anxiety in respect to the fact that, and it makes people upset because they've paid into this mortgage, and all of a sudden maybe their neighbor has decided to, and they had to foreclose on their property, that depreciates your property.
Right. That is frustrating because you can't control that. That's beyond what you can.
It is, and it's depressing because here you are paying your mortgage, doing what is right, and then suddenly this occurs, or the person next to you may have sold their property for $50,000 less because they needed to make that happen immediately, and it just wasn't selling, and that becomes they call it a comparable to your property, so it becomes a comp. Yeah. So when you look at your property and the values within that 3-mile radius, it's going to be based on the property that's sold as well.
Yes.
And I mean, I've had these conversations, and I understand. Believe me, people get upset, and I've explained to them that it isn't nice, and it's not fun to hear that your value is $300 and you owe $350, and that is the common term as what we call upside down on your mortgage.
Right.
And it's not your doing. It's just that we went through a period where everything was overinflated.
Right.
It was never really valued at what it was supposed to be valued at. Now we're where it should have been.
Right. Reality is not so pretty.
It isn't. It's not a fun experience, but there are some programs where you may be a little bit over what you're currently owing on your mortgage, and there are some financing options that are offered, but there's a lot of work involved in order to see whether you qualify as well.
Okay.
But I really don't recommend you to sort of go into a situation where I know that folks have gone into loan modification, and I'm not against it. I just want people to really think about it because they require you becoming delinquent on the mortgage. And
oh, really?
They do.
How so?
Well, here's the scenario. If you are currently struggling with your mortgage payment and you've been current, I would recommend that you call us and we can see if we can help you lower the interest rate. If you are looking at that option of loan modification, what occurs with loan modification is they will tell you that, firstly, that you need to show that you are not current on your mortgage. And some folks have said, well, okay, so I'll just not pay the mortgage for 2 months. But here's the thing. You submit the paperwork after you're not paying the mortgage maybe for 2 months, and you may not still be approved.
Oh, boy.
So now
and meanwhile, your credit report has gone down. Your credit rating, rather.
Right.
Ooh.
So you're not really benefiting in that respect. So I really want you to think hard about where you are today. If you're not late on your mortgage, if you think you're going to be struggling or are struggling, be current, stay current, call us. We'll see what we can do to help you and see if there are other options, because that is the one bill you do not want to be delinquent on. Everything else, I say be on time, but if it comes to the mortgage or something else, make sure the mortgage is current.
Yeah, okay. Now, for folks who are getting close to retirement age and have seen a loss in their savings, I know some of them have considered a reverse mortgage.
Right.
That certainly has been floating around out there as a solution for a while now. Is that ever a good idea?
I think it's a good idea if it's the right lender. We don't offer that program. Philosophically, it's really not something that it doesn't fit well with our value system in the sense of there's a lot of things, a lot of clauses. I mean, some folks have gotten into a situation where they were promised one thing, and once the equity runs out, they're asked to leave the property, and that was not what they had originally thought the agreement was.
No, because they'd gone into it thinking this means that I will be here until the end. Yeah.
Exactly. So as I've always said, read the paperwork, and if it's too good to be true, read it again and get someone else to look at it. I mean, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not saying you need to hire a lawyer and spend money on it, but get a family member or someone who cares, who's concerned, and you can ask the questions and make sure that when you're closing on a reverse mortgage that you ask the question over and over again and make sure it's clearly defined, that you are in that property until the end, that you're not going to be removed once the equity runs out.
Yeah. These are things that are worth, talking again with somebody who's got an objective eye and somebody who's used to these questions and knows the market. And our recommendation for our WEZE and WROL listeners is always Mosen Mortgage. Sarah's more than happy to speak with you and just answer questions. And the more information you have, as Sarah always says, the better decisions you're going to make, and that's free. So give Sarah a call, 800-662-9550. Whether or not you're near retirement, as people are starting out, new marriages and things like that in the next few months, Sarah, what should their long-term goals be? Because, obviously they're going to have short-term. They want to get into a house perhaps, or they want to start a family, or they want to pay off their student loans. Can they also be addressing the big retirement issue at the same time?
Sure you can. I think that the one thing that I always say to folks is this, which will really give you a huge return on success. Obviously love what you do, because if you hate it, you're not going to succeed, and you're going to walk away at some point and say, this is garbage, and make everyone else miserable around you.
Exactly. Take everybody else down with you.
And certainly if you're looking at retirement and investments, do what you know best. So invest in things you understand. So if you love peanut butter, then invest in companies that make peanut butter, and you'll have passion for it. I mean, I'm from the Warren Buffett School of Thought. Do what you know best and invest in what you know best, not in things that you don't know anything about, because I've done it before. In my 20s, trying to be somebody else. Now I'm sort of like, I got to live
up on that
one. Now that's exhausting. It is very exhausting.
It is, but you're right. Keep it close to home. Maybe it's diaper wipes.
Exactly.
I mean, if that's something that you're intimately familiar with right now, there
well,
you go.
It is truly. I've seen it over and over again. Do what you know best, and not struggle with trying to be something that, or be someone that you're not. And business, I think that businesses and folks that want to get into business, I think it's a great idea. I think that this country was built on sort of free markets, and small businesses employ over 70% of Americans. However, it takes a lot of work to be a business owner. So if you are planning to start a business, make sure you're financially stable. Don't start with a negative and have outstanding debt, because business primarily, and running a business, 99% is understanding money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And as I see the work that's involved in it, I certainly know that I love what I do, and it takes work.
Yes, even so. Even if you really look forward to it every day.
I do, but it takes
uphill.
work.
Yeah.
It takes work, and it takes a great deal of joy to be able to do this day in and day out. And certainly the financial house needs to be in order. And that goes in respect to having a good family life and having faith, and being able to go to church and be able to share with the community, giving back. Those are things that bring joy.
Right.
And that makes you more successful than you would ever realize, because then you're fulfilled, and you can see that. People see that in you. They know that you are doing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes. We have a lot more to talk about this week, so we're inviting all our listeners. Come on back, same time tomorrow. Sarah will be here.
Stay well, folks.
This has been the Mosen Mortgage Program with Sarah Mosen. Mosen Mortgage is licensed in several states for residential and commercial purchases and refinancing. Call 800-662-9550.